Thank you,
I
Senator
heard a
Kennedy.
gavel.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Booker?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that Senator Kennedy is Santa Claus of spirit, but he is the Grinch when it comes to stealing my time. But it's good to see him as always.
I'm sorry.
Director Wray, it's good to see you again. I just want to say at the top, as often, I don't get often enough to say it to you, but having years and years of working with FBI agents, especially in New Jersey, I just know that you represent an organization of extraordinarily noble people who do things on a daily basis to protect us and to keep us safe that most Americans don't know about. And in this time of year, especially just that heroism, I just want to recognize it at the top. I listened in my office to a lot of the earlier questioning, and I'm just really grateful for how much of an emphasis you've been putting on the safety and security of Americans to racist and religious hate. It was literally hours after the October 7th attacks. I was in Israel that I reached out to my colleagues in the Democratic caucus and said that we have to get more money for the nonprofit security grants, and I'm glad that there seems to be bipartisan movement to that. I appreciate the comments of a lot of my colleagues, especially Tom Cotton, Michael Tuchin. I know him well, and what happened at his house is galling, but as you said, it's indicative of a lot of the violence. In fact, when it comes to anti-Semitism, it's the top form of religious hate and hate violence we see. I want to drill down a little bit about the violence that we're seeing and the threats on the Muslim community, because there's a lot of issues with trust when it comes to the FBI and the Muslim community. And having seen, when I was mayor of the city of Newark, unjust surveillance and the erosion of a lot of that trust, not of the FBI in particular, but of law enforcement in general, I just want to know from you, what are you doing? What steps are you taking to try to be restorative of trust to make sure at a time of vulnerability where Muslims are being targeted with hate, an Arab community in larger context is, what are you doing to especially build that trust to know that you as an agency can be relied upon for their safety?
Well, I appreciate your comments and your focus on the issue. Certainly, we, through every one of our field offices, have as a point of emphasis community outreach, and within community outreach, there are specific communities that they make a conscious point of trying to build bridges with. The Muslim community, the Arab American community are specific parts of that. The good news is that it didn't take October 7th and the aftermath for us to start doing that. I've been to all 56 field offices twice, each of them, many of them 3 times, and I've seen with my own 2 eyes the relationships that they've built with the Muslim and Arab American communities in their areas. And so we've just continued to try to double down on that post-October 7th to make sure that they know we're there for them if they experience threats or violence. There have been tips and leads, reports of threats that have come in. The chairman mentioned the attack against the unconscionable attack against the 6-year-old boy in his area, but we've had other attacks as well. So we're trying to make sure that they know we're there for them. I will tell you on a personal level, I've, as somebody who was in FBI headquarters on 9/11, I have never forgotten. As a young leader in the Justice Department at the time, couldn't have been more than 4 days maybe after 9/11, President Bush, in the middle of all the tension that existed at the time, making a conscious point of speaking, I believe it was at a mosque, and making clear that we're at war with terrorism, we're not at war with Islam.
Thank you.
And that really always kind of moved me that he had made that step at that time, because it would have been the easy thing to do, not to do that.
No, I'm grateful for that as well, and grateful for your visits. I imagine Newark was a 3-visit place, not a 2-visit place.
I think my 3rd visit is imminent.
Okay, that's good to know. The Executive Order 14110 directed federal law enforcement agencies to produce a report on the use of AI in the criminal justice system and recommend best practices for law enforcement. The report builds on Executive Order 14074, which directed the Attorney General to issue best practices, policy changes, and procurement guidelines for advanced law enforcement technologies, including facial recognition, other biometric technology and predictive algorithms. Can you provide the committee with an update on the reporting requirements, including an estimate for when you expect to release the guidance on advanced law enforcement technologies in light of the fact that the deadline set in the EO has passed?
Let me circle back with you on that. I know we have an entire team of people working very closely with the department and others on this issue. And I wasn't aware that there was a deadline that we'd missed, so let me see if there's some garble in the process, but I will make sure we circle back to you on it.
Yeah, and finally, I found every interaction I've had with you directly or your office on 702 really compelling. From sitting in classified briefings to talking to administration officials, and your comments at the top of the hearing were again very, very compelling. I think you heard that this is an issue that is in both parties. There are a lot of concerns, and when Mike Lee was speaking, he talked about a lot of the violations of what we would both agree is just egregious violations of what 702 should be about. The reforms that have been put forward and the work that's been done to correct for them. But I'm concerned, I trust you, but I learned when it comes to leadership, there's a difference between time tellers and clock builders. Time tellers are those people that their leadership is so powerful, everybody knows the time and goes accordingly. But the best leaders are those that help to build mechanisms that no matter who's the leader, the protections, the security, the knowledge is there. And so when you hear some of these egregious mistakes, can you tell us in testimony now that you're pretty confident that the abuses that were talked about so openly here in this hearing, that those abuses cannot and will not happen going forward?
I can pledge to you and to this committee that we have put in place new measures that exceed anything that's ever been in place before, that we are focused on a goal of getting to 100% compliance. But I can also tell you that, and I understand why we've brought this on ourselves to some extent, and I hear that. I hear that in Senator Lee's comments. I understand why that is there, but that's why I point to the court itself and the department itself looking hard at our compliance post all these reforms, because these are the same people and the same kinds of documents that have discussed all these problems of the past. They're the ones now saying they're seeing 98% compliance. And these are reforms that we've had in place since really only just the middle of 2021. So it's not just take my word for it. I get that. It's, trust but verify, and there's a verification piece that's occurred here. And we think that to the extent that there's a desire to cement those reforms for the long run, that's what legislation could do. Yeah.
My time has expired, and I'll just say in conclusion, and I know you know this intellectually, but I actually know you feel this in your heart. My lived tradition is the African-American experience, and clearly the FBI has a very bad history with the black community in the 50s, 60s. Before that, the assurances are critical, and I still have, like the chairman said in his opening remarks, some concerns about how do we ensure that the most sacred ideals of our country aren't violated by law enforcement, especially for communities that have seen historic targeting. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. The last few weeks, I've been demanding some answers on